A very good morning to all. In today's session, we're all going to learn about attitude measurement and its scale. How the attitude could be measured, how the skills could be measured, what would be the methods all around it. That will be studied in today's session. So let's begin with the basic concept of attitude, attributes, and beliefs. So what are all about is attitudes are the journal of positive and the negative feelings, the feelings that a particular person feels about a particular object and idea. That is called attitudes. That is a journal perspective that a particular person feels towards any idea about any object, about any characteristics of a particular individual. That is all about attitudes. When we talk about the attributes, attributes are the characteristics of the object or idea of an individual or a population. That is called, you can say, the attributes which can be easily measured. Like, for example, if we talk about the gender, we categorize into two parts, male and female. So that's called the attribute where I am talking about the characteristics of a gender, that is male, female, or other or third category of gender. That is called attributes. When we talk about the beliefs, beliefs are the person convictions or the acceptance of a fact and truth. So if I believe that I would become a successful businessman, that's called belief. So beliefs are the own person conviction or the acceptance of a particular fact or the truth about him or others. That is called beliefs. So, in a research methodology, attitudes, attributes, and beliefs are almost used to understand the human behavior. Here, we are talking about the human feelings, the attitude we are talking about. We are studying the characteristic of an individual or an object or an idea. We are talking about attributes. If we are talking about a belief of a person towards any truth or any fact or it's related to an acceptance of the same, that is called belief. So automatically we are actually studying the human behavior, especially when it comes to the consumer behavior, product design, or the marketing research, which also includes the satisfaction level as well. So that's all about the attitudes, attributes, and beliefs. The next section is how it could measure the attitudes, attributes, and beliefs. Attitudes, attributes, and beliefs can be measured using the various techniques, and the three main techniques could be self-reports, observation, physiological measures. When we talk about the self-report measures, it includes the questionnaires method and the interviews method where the respondents to be called up and asked the questions related to measure the attitude, the attributes, and the beliefs on a particular scale. It could be the nominal scale, or it could be a ranking scale or ordinal scale as well. So if we talk about the, you can say any of the categories related to the, if any questionnaire is to be made up, that means or interviews to be conducted and towards to assess the attitudes and attributes and beliefs of an individual, of a person, then automatically we talk about the self-report measures. The next one is observational measures, where we study the behavior of the individuals in a real life scenario. If any accident happened on a road, then automatically the researcher begins to observe the behavior of the individual who are actually surrounding near the accident area. So that is called the observational measures, or we are as a teacher, we are sitting in a classroom and we are just looking the behavior of the students towards studying the mathematics. So that is also comes under the observational measures. The next one is physiological measures, which includes the measures such as heart rate, skin conductance, and facial expression. So if like if I don't like the chicken, so I will make an expression of not liking the chicken, then automatically it comes under the physiological measures where the particular researcher is trying to assist your facial expression towards any object or idea, and that's a perfect measurement tools or the techniques which could be used to measure these three main expected parameters, that is attitude, attributes, and beliefs. These are the example of the are working in a corporate space, and they are actually being stressful in a particular corporate environment. So automatically for them it is a pleasurable feeling while smoking a cigarette, and it turns to be a positive attitude towards smoking. The next one is attribute. Attribute is a quality, a characteristic a person has. So if we talk about the student qualities, I could talk about the integrity, the confidence level, the student honesty, the adaptability easily, the leadership quality, and the teamwork the student has actually. So that means I am talking about the attributes of an individual a student has or a person has. So if I'm talking about any qualities or the characteristics of a person or for a student of a student, that means I am talking about the attributes in terms of research. Then, and the last one is belief, the example of self-related core belief, the particular, you can say the truth about myself or about your self. That is the example of belief. That I have a lot to offer other people and the world. I'm intelligent and resourceful. I will succeed. So automatically, it is the truth or the fact that I am a narrative in a very statement form, in a you can say in the factual statements which has been stated on the slide. So that these are the examples of a belief. So if you have any truth, if you have any facts that you want to portray or reveal to someone, you can easily understand the what you have to what exactly the truth is you have to portray and appeal to others, and that's called beliefs. Next, we talk about the common issues in attitude measurement. The first one is social desirability based, as there are always the errors when a particular researchers take the responses to the from the respondents about their belief and whether they are socially acceptable or desirable or not, rather than their true beliefs. So automatically, whatever the responses received from the respondents, they are not exactly portraying their true beliefs. So whatever they are provide the answer, a researcher has to believe whether it is a socially acceptable or desirable or not. So that basis comes to be an issue in the attitude measurement. So it always, especially the basis could always be occurred in a very sensitive topics like religion, politics, and the moral issues. So such particular topics are actually become a socially desirability base because the respondents could not able to give their true beliefs or true opinion towards these topics. So automatically it's one of the difficult or you can concern difficult area or the concern when it comes to measure the attitude of such respondents. Next one is response sets. Another issue is response sets, which always occurs when the respondent is to select the same response option without considering the specific question. So without reading up the question, without properly understand the question, you automatically just response or the responses which not being mentioned in the options. So ultimately, it is also the one of the common issue in attitude measurement. For example, a respondent may always choose the neutral option or the extreme option regardless of the question content. So the option that might choose is not available, is not mentioned in the particular option, response set option. So automatically the response set is also the one of the common issue in attitude measurement. Next one is question wording. Sometimes it is very difficult that the poor worded questions is also faces a difficulty in the respondent's mind, and of course it leads to a misleading responses, and ultimately it does not reflect a respondent's true attitudes. For example, questions with double negatives, technical jargon, emotionally charged words could lead to a confusion and the based responses. The next one is scale selection. Selecting an appropriate scale for measuring the attitudes. It's also another common issue. There are different types of scales like Likert scales, semantic differential scales, Gutman scales have different strength and weakness. So it is if the researcher doesn't have expertise knowledge regarding choosing the appropriate scale for its questionnaires, then automatically it become another issue for the attitude measurement. That means such selecting not if the researcher is not able to select the appropriate scale for its questionnaire, then ultimately it leads to an inaccurate or inconsistent results for its data measurement. So that is called the scale selection as well. So these type of scales which will definitely be covered in the upcoming slides in detail. Now the next part is, or next section is, what is scaling? The term scale of measurement is automatically derived from two words in statistics. The first one is measurement and the second one is scale. Now, what is measurement? So measurement is a process of recording the observation collected, which is a part of the primary research. So that is called the measurement. So measurement is actually the process that how a researcher is record the observations which has been collected and a part of the research. But scaling, on the other hand, is an assignment of objects to numbers, to any other alphabets, to any other categories. That is called scaling. So if a particular researcher has prepared a one question with the multiple options, so scaling means to put a ranking, to put a numerical codes, to put a category to that option is actually called scaling. If we talk about the income of a students like less than 10,000, 10,000 to 20,000, 20,000 to 30,000, 30,000 to 40,000. If I put these particular options or which are available in the question into a numerical into a numbers, or into any other alphabetical codes, that's called scaling. So these two words, if we merge together, then automatically it shows a relationship between or among the assigned objects and the recorded observation is called scaling. What is measurement scale? A measurement scales is actually used to qualify or the quantify the data variables in statistics. This is mainly another kind of techniques to be used for statistical analysis. There are different kinds of measurement scales, and the type of data is being collected using any of the kind of measurement scales for statistical data measurements. These measurement scales are of four in number, that is the nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and the ratio scale. Such measurement scales are used to measure the qualitative data or the quantitative data. The quantitative data is mainly to always show up the numerical facts and figures, but qualitative which always talk about the characteristics of an individual. So with nominal and the ordinal scale is being used to measure to qualitative data, but internal and the ratio scales which always been used in a quantitative data. So let's understand these four main types of scale, that is the nominal, ordinal, interval, and the ratio scale, so that you can easily understand the measurement scales. So there are four levels of data measurement, and the level of measurement of a given data set is actually determined by a relationship between the values the particular researcher assigned to the attributes of a data variables. That is called the level of management. For example, the relationship between the values, that is 1 and 2, has been assigned to the attributes males and females. As I told, if I talk about the income of the student that is less than 10,000, then 10,000 to 20,000, then 20,000 to 30,000. If I assign the numbers or any alphabets to these options of the question, that's become the scaling. That's become the scales of that particular options of the question, response options. So that is called the measurement of the scale or the measurement scale. So the relationship between the values 1 and 2, if assigned to the attributes, here attributes are the characteristics of an individual, of a person has, that is called attributes. For example, gender, we classified into two categories, male and female. So a gender is a main variable, that is identity, and that's called nominal scale. So if any of the variable and its response set, if we assign any numbers, if we assign any values of that particular, you can say the attributes, the options, the response options available of that particular main variable, that's become nominal scale. So the levels of data are measurement of scales are the nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and the ratio scales. So let's study one by one quickly. The first one is the nominal scale. Nominal scale is a scale of measurement which has always been used for the identification purposes. This is one of the coolest, one of the easiest, and the one of the weakest level of data measurement among the four main types. Sometimes it is also called the categorical scale, where we just assign the numbers, the categories, or to the attributes of a variable, so that we can, a particular researcher is easy to identify through the numbers, through the categories of a particular variable. And it also label that particular options, that particular attributes of a particular variable. So this is it is only being used for the statistical analysis when a particular researcher will perform any of the attributes in the oceanaries on a nominal scale. Why it was? Because it is why it is being used, because it is very easy to calculate a percentage or any of the frequency count, as which has always been shown in the particular tabulation or the tables, and it can be easily identified, analyzed graphically using a bar chart and pie chart as well. So let's have a question to measurement of a popularity of a political party is measured on a nominal scale, and how it is measured, the popularity of a political party, that which political party are you affiliated with, independent, republican, and democrat. So automatically, which part if we convert another question, which political party are you willing to vote, that is VJP, Congress, and Aam Aadmi Party. So if I level them, these response set into for independent 1, Republican 2, Democrat 1, that means it becomes nominal scale, because as I am portraying any of the attributes which are better than other, which are more better than other, which are only used to identification purposes or to use to identify for the easy data analysis, that actually called nominal scale. Now we can talk about the ordinal scale. Ordinal scale is always refer to the ranking and the ordering of the attributes. It's depending on the variable being scaled. So either the particular items, whatever the items in these scale, whatever the attributes in these scales, whatever the variables and its attribute on these scales, it totally depends in the ascending or descending order. A researcher can be put any of the option either ascending or descending order. It totally depends upon the choice of the researcher. So ordinal scale can be used in market research, advertising purposes, customer satisfaction, customers, you can say, perception. So automatically it could be used as a qualifiers like very, highly, more, less, to show a degree of satisfaction. That's called the ordinal scale. So here we are talking about the ordering of the response set, ranking of the response set. So if I'm using a WhatsApp app, so how would you rate our WhatsApp app? It could be excellent. First, first will be the excellent, second will be the very good, third would be the good, bad, and poor. So these are the options which are actually based on the ranking basis or the category basis or ordering basis. Not category, it's a ranking or ordering basis. If we talk about the category and numbers, we're talking about the nominal scale. Ordinal scale is only deals with the ranking or ordering of the attributes, and this example is actually refer to a ordinal scale. Either the order would be in the descending order or could be in the ascending order, and that's become the ordinal scale. Next one is interval scale. The interval scale of data measurement is a scale in which the levels are ordered and each numerically equal distance on the scale have equal interval differences. This scale is mainly used for the academic purposes when we use to estimate the percentage, the highest percentage among the students, or used to calculate the patient recovery temperature or the blood pressure or the fever temperature. So in that type of categories, when we measuring any kind of scores, any kind of temperature, any kind of, if we talk about the earthquake tremors rates, that is also comes under the interval scale. So such scales where the level of data are to be ordered and every measurement are to be done through the equal interval differences. If we talk about class intervals 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, so we have an equal interval differences, that is 10. So that is called the interval scale. So mostly this scale are mostly used in education, engineering, medicine purposes. Where if we talk about the, if we calculate the blood sugar, you can see the references level, the interval referencing level, that is 10 to 15, then 15 to 20, then above 25. It would be the lower, moderate, and higher blood sugar. So what's the type of scaling used in measuring that the blood sugar of a particular patient? That's called interval scale. So basically, a common example in measuring the temperature on the fragmented scale, and such interval scales we use in median, calculating the median, mode, uh, mean, range, standard deviation. Why? Because in these particular statistical measures we are always use interval, class intervals. That means we are talking about the interval scale. And the last one is ratio scale. So the ratio scale is a extent version of the interval scale, which always talk to measure the four characteristics of the scaling, that is identity, magnitude, equal intervals, and absolute zero property. So that means where the researcher is trying to compare the differences also and the magnitude of numbers also, that how much the nearest the integral or non-integral numbers is to be used in these particular scale. So such scale could be used in calculating the length, weight, height, time, etc. And if I am trying a service to collect the weight of my students, then automatically we just categorize the weights. We just mention the response set of the relevant scale, which covers the ranges of the weights, that is more than 100 kg, then 81 to 100, 61 to 80, and so on. Here we are measuring the identity, that is weight, magnitude, that how far and less, then the numbers occurs, then equal intervals. If you look up the equal intervals, the 20 gap is a equal intervals and absolute zero property. If you look up the option, the ending of the numbers is zero. So automatically all these characteristics always being followed in the ratio scale, and that's become the one of the quotient type of the ratio scale, where we can measure the height, where we can measure the weight, where we can measure the time, length, width, anything, diameters of a cube. If you look up there are the various options to be prepared, so that the correct option a student or a teacher or a reader could mark in it, and that's become the ratio scale. So this is a difference of the scales of measurement. So if we talk about the labeling, so automatically nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio is all are labeled. So nominal is all about the numbers or categories. Ordinal, we talk about the ranking and ordering of the data set. Intervals, we always talk about the exact measurements. Ratio, we always talk about the you can say the four main characteristics, and based on the characteristics we just rank we just you can say making up the options relate to the class intervals, and the class intervals will always comes under the ranges. When we talk about the meaningful order, there is no order of the nominal, ordinal, interval, and the ratio. It always follow in a order, either ascending or descending order of the response sets. Measurable differences, always the measurable differences. When we talk about the intervals, we always estimate the differences of the values in the ratio also. Why? Because ratio is an extension of the interval. So if we talk about the ratio scale, the interval will automatically comes into the ratios. True zero starting point. There is no true zero starts from nominal, ordinal interval, only the ratios, because every measurement of a variable begins from 0 to 10, yeah, 10 to 20, yeah, or if we talk about the time, it always begins from the 0. So the ratio is always comes under the true zero starting point. Now we can talk about the major types of scaling to measure the attitude to determine the attitude of an individual's or of a population. So one of the scale is Goodman scale, which is a deterministic attitude measurement models, and the first one is Goodman scale. Now, what is Goodman scale is? Goodman scale is based on the hierarchy of the related quotient and the rest, and such scale is always identified with the answer yes or no to the determinist questions that represent the increasingly extreme position on an issue. So automatically, the more a respondent answer yes, that means he support a particular opinion or a statement. So by listing question from the least to most supportive, yes or no option will be followed, and when any of the question will followed upon with the yes or no, or any of the opinions or the facts has been related to any of the you can say concern with yes and no, that comes under the Goodman scale. So we have a researcher have a list of questions, and whatever the options are available, it would be yes or no. That means that any statement or any opinion has been mentioned in the form of the question, and the option is yes or no. That scaling is called Goodman scale. The Goodman scale is also known as the cumulative scaling and the scologram analysis as well, and it always based on the ordinal scale. Ordinal scale is the ranking or the ordering level. So the ordering level would be yes or no, or the ranking it would be yes or no or yes. So automatically, with the number of statements has been placed in a hierarchical order, and you have to answer with the yes or no. Are you favoring this particular statement or not? So this is all about the Goodman scale. So this is an example which has been shown. A particular question is being asked from the respondent to assess views on mental health. So the depression affects many people in our society, yes or no? Depressed people should seek help from their or doctors, yes or no? Medication can help with depression. So the response is yes or no. Therapy and medication can help with depression, yes or no, and so on. So if any of the questions begins with the yes or no in a very theoretical in order, that's become Goodman scale, and the Goodman scale is follows the ordinal scale with the ranking and order of the response set, and that's become Goodman scale. So you can apply the Goodman scale to a wide range of surveys. So if you are making up a survey related to the cumulative learning, about to assess the student's academic achievement, and you have to measure your opinion, the respondent opinion. You have to measure the sentiment like customer satisfaction, employee engagement, all that. So of course, the Goodman scale would be a good scale to be used in preparing the questionnaires. So these are also an identification purposes so that you can easily apply, easily use or adopt the Goodman scale in your questionnaires. The next scale is third stone scale. Third stone scale is defined as a unidimensional scale which always used to track the respondent behavior, feelings, attitudes towards a particular subject, idea, or object. This scale is always consist of any of the statements about a particular issue and topic, and where each statement having a numerical value which indicates the respondent attitude towards that topic, whether favorable or unfavorable, whether a particular respondent are agree with or not. That means, and that's become a third stone scale. It is defined as a universe which always scale consists of all, and accordingly a mean score is to be estimated. So whatever there are 100 respondents, and out of the 100, there are some of the respondents who said who are agree, and some of the respondents who are not agree. And easily a particular researcher can estimate the mean score of the agreement or disagreement towards a particular topic, and which easily denotes the attitude of the respondents towards the topic. So if you are preparing any questionnaires or regarding any issue, whether it is related to any of the you can see issue related to unemployment, poverty, inflation, and you are just making up the questionnaires, and you are asking whether you are agree or not agree, and accordingly the respondent respond, which always shows their attitudes towards this particular issue and concern, and that's become Thornstone scale. This is an example so that you can easily understand the Thornstone scale. It is usually implemented a series of quotient in the various statements. So the quotient that you make in the form of the statement, and when you make up a statement, you can ask whether agree or disagree. So this is a quotient. I'm happy with the level of supervision I'm receiving, agree or disagree. I'm confident in the quality of training resources available to me, agree or disagree. I feel I can achieve a good balance between the work and relaxation time, agree or disagree. So if any of the series of the question begins with the response said agree or disagree, that's become Thornstone scale. Next one is symmetric differential scale. So this is a 7-point rating scale with endpoints associated with the bipolar levels, that good or bad or happy. So it is used for the marketing purposes, advertising, or at different stages of the product development. If any company launches a new product and they just want a feedback from the customers, the symmetric differential scale will be used. Whether the customer happy with the product, feels bad with the product, or they are feeling good with the product, with using the product. So such type of assessing about the products, it's called we can particular researcher can use the symmetric differential scale. Symmetric differential scale is a rating scale used to measure the attitudes and opinions of the respondents towards an object, person, event, or idea. It uses a set of bipolar adjectives like good, bad, happy, sad, strong, weak, placed at opposite ends of the continuum. So if any of the, you can say, question has been made, so accordingly you have to make with the adjective response set. Respondents are asked to rate the object of interest to each objective using 7 point or 10 point. You can have a look of the scoring of your grades from A to GH. So that is also called a 7 point rating scale. The scale measures the perceived distance or gap between the two opposite concepts, and it provides the information about the attitude of the response towards the object. Let's look up an example to understand. This is the examples of the symmetric differential scale quotients. So to evaluate the symmetric scale quotient measures the overall attitude of a response towards a concept or object. Example, please rate your attitudes towards the new product as pleasant or unpleasant. Potency symmetric differential scale measure the perceived strength or power of a concept and object. Please rate the product as strong or weak. Actively symmetric differential scale, just level of activity you associate with the concept or object. Please rate the new exercise program as active or inactive, where in this particular scale you are using the bipolar adjectives forms, and that's become a symmetric differential scale quotient. So control symmetric differential scales measure the level of control that a respondent feels towards a particular concept or object, and please rate the new software as controllable or uncontrollable. Actual symmetric differential scale, the level of excitement the customers have towards the concept or the object, and the please rate a new movie exciting or boring. So this is all about the different types of symmetric differential scale quotients. The next one is Likert scale. Likert scale is a rating scale which is used to measure the survey participants' opinions, attitudes, motivations, and more. And it rates from 4 to 7 point scale. So what is a Likert scale survey question? Asking a yes or no question. Do you like our product? So you just scale ranging from don't like it at all or like it a lot. So this is a way that how the question and the response set of a question will be made. Likert scale, most of the researchers and practitioners are always used to quantify and capture the complexity of the individual opinions, especially in psychological behavior and in measuring the attitudes. For example, someone who likes the product but is not crazy about it, we just probably gives a Likert scale rating of somewhat like it. So this is a way that how the Likert scale has been proceed. How important or unimportant is using social media to you? Very unimportant, unimportant, somewhat unimportant, somewhat important, important, and very important. So these are the response set which has been ordered in the descending order, begin from the very unimportant and ending with the very important. So this is how the Likert scale. So if there are 6 options, it means 6 point rating scale. If there is 7 options, that means 7 rating scale. If there is 9 options, that means there is 9 rating scale. If there is 10 options, it means a 10 rating scale. So let's go through a quick view. Types of rating scales. It is a flexible, it is an interval scales to be used. And the common are 4 type, 5 type, 7 type, and 10 point scale. If we talk about the 4 point Likert scale, the 4 point Likert scale does not provide the middle and neutral points of the scale. This is normally used to check on the respondent attitudes towards a variable. So let's have a question. How satisfied or dissatisfied are you with the speed of product delivery? Very dissatisfied, dissatisfied, satisfied, and very satisfied. This is called a 4-point Likert scale where I cannot say neutral, neutral. We can also write a response in neutral, but does not comes under the 4-point Likert scale. It's just satisfied or dissatisfied or very dissatisfied or very satisfied. 5-point rating scale. So this is a way that how you can assess the respondent opinion, including the midpoint, any neutral OP options as well. So let's have a example. How easy or difficult is it to sign up for our mobile app? Very difficult, somewhat difficult, neither difficult nor easy, somewhat easy, or very easy. This is the way that how the questions and the response set is to be prepared using the 5-point Likert scale. And these are the options which always been used under the 5-point Likert scale. Next one is 6-point Likert scales where the 6 options are available or 6 response rate. How important or unimportant is using social media to you? Very unimportant, unimportant, somewhat important, important, and very important. This is called a 6-point Likert scale. 7-point Likert scale, which always denotes, and this is a way that how it looks like. 7-point Likert scale. How much do you agree or disagree the company helps its employees grow their career? Strongly disagree, disagree, somewhat disagree, neither agree, or not disagree, somewhat agree, and strongly agree. Whatever the order they have followed is a descending order, begins from disagree to agree. If it is agree to disagree, it could be an ascending order. So that is for depends on the choice of the researcher which order they have to follow. Any order could be followed as an ascending or descending in the 7-point rating scale. And this is a 10-point rating scale, which always allow you to get the data of more granularity and the precision. So this is an example. How important or unimportant is it for you to talk about your career growth regularly with your manager? So very unimportant, somewhat unimportant, you can say you can say very less unimportant and more unimportant. So neither important or unimportant. So we can talk about the very important, very highly important, very low important, very you can say extremely important, and the 10th one is extremely important. So these are the 10th options or that response set has been set up so that a particular response this respondent could able to answer according to their choice. So in this way, our researcher will would easy for him or her to assess the attitude of the respondents. And the next one is Q-sort scaling. Q-sort scaling is a rank order scaling technique where the respondents are asked to sort the presented objectives into piles based on their similarity in regards using of the specific you can say criteria such as preferences, attitude, perceptions. Let's take an example. Suppose the respondents are given 100 motivational statements or individual cards and asked to place these in 11 piles ranging from the most agreed with the respondent who are looking up the 100 motivation statement, and he agreed with the most one and to the least agreed with the statement the particular respondent is agreed at least. That is called a quick sorting scaling. You have to sort The statements form agree to list agree according to your opinion. So the most agree statement is placed on the top and the least agree statement placed at the bottom, and that's become the queue sorting skill. Next one is multidimensional scaling. Multidimensional scaling is a visual representation of distances, dissimilarity between the set of objects. When you look up on the Google, there is a verification images is to be come up, and you have to you can see check on that way any of the bisexual images which has been shown in a broken set, you have to identify in the particular set which images is occur in which boxes, and that's become a multi-dimensional scaling where the objects can be colors, faces, maps, coordinates, political, any kind of conceptual real based objects. Objects which are more similar are closer together on the graph, and which are less similar having a longer distance. For example, academic aptitude can be measured using two separate tests of students, mathematical and verbal ability, and then combine these scores to create the overall measure of the academic aptitude. If you look up any non-verbal reasoning, so there are one question and the five response set in the graphs, in the diagrams, and you have to answer the right diagram. What is called? It's called multidimensional scaling, and it will be used in a non-verbal reasoning when to assess your you can see academic aptitude test. So that's called multidimensional scaling. Selecting the right attitude measurement scale is based on these four parameters. Research objectives would be there that which research objective a particular researcher has to use to assess the attitude of a respondents, that is affective, behavior, and cognitive in nature. Type of data, it is very necessary to determine for the researcher whether to use qualitative and quantitative data and which appropriate scale to be used accordingly. The level of precision, consider the level of precision required for your research study, the route where the study could begin. That would be very important for preparing the questionnaires and to assess the attitude of the respondent and choose the scaling which provides a desired level of granularity. Next one is target population. So it is very important that it could be a rural or urban or suburban population you could consider based on their different characteristics of the population like age, gender, education, income, marital status, their cultural background, etc. And accordingly, a right and appropriate scale is to be chosen for the audience. Next is the limitation of attitude measurement scales. The first one is social desirability based, where the attitudes are not always easy to measure. So automatically, sometimes the people may give socially desirable answers rather than true beliefs. And in this way, the base is always occurs in terms of the social concern or social issues, and which does not able to portray the responding true feelings and opinions because if they are actually in fear of being judged. So these bases are actually doesn't portray the accuracy of the results. The next one is limited response option. The response option provided on the attitude measurement scales may be limited. So sometimes it's very difficult to cover up the full range of responses in a particular question instead of having the many responses. So automatically it will leads to the oversimplification and lack of depth in the responses. Sometimes there are few complex question where the responses are in 10 in numbers, 12 in numbers. So automatically it is very difficult to include every option. And if we don't include every option, then ultimately it shows a lack of depth in the responses and oversimplification. So it is also the one of the limitation of the attitude measurement skills, because it is very difficult to measure the attitude of the respondents when a particular statements having plenty of responses or plenty of options available. So this is also the one of the limitation of attitude measurement scales. The next one is the question wording. So the wording of the question should be the easiest one and can able to understand by the respondents. But sometimes the wording of the question are so complex that it is very difficult for the respondent to interpret that question and or answer that questions. So the wording of the questions are also important to consider, and if it is easy, but it also become a limitation if the language or the wordings of the you can say questions are actually complex or lengthy, which always gives an inaccurate responses and which leads to a difficulty in the data analysis for a particular study, or in order having a difficulty to understand the attitude of a particular respondent. Next one is contextual factors. Contextual factor means it is based on the situation, and the same person may have a different attitudes towards a topic depending on the circumstances. Sometimes it is very difficult for a researcher that having a different attitudes towards a topic depending upon the circumstances or the situation. So it is very the researcher would able to fail to consider these factors which can impact the accuracy of the results. Next one is response variability. Individual might have the responses to be different of the same question at different times as well. So sometimes this is also the limitation of the attitude measurement scales, because these variability in the responses which always impact the consistency and the reliability of the results. So if there is inconsistency and unreliability of the result, then ultimately there will be a flaw in the overall interpretation and the findings of the study, which ultimately leads to an inaccuracy. So these are the limitations of the you can say attitude measurement scales, which always implies you can say inaccuracy, unreliability, and automatically which always harm to the overall study of the researcher. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening this lecture. I will come up to the more and more interesting topics and important topics in the upcoming session related to this particular, you can say, postcode. And till time, thank you and namaste to all.